It's called Dreams by Pied Pipers, and apologies for blabbing through it, but I will get caught on the copyright. My name is Couch Coop, and we're going to be having a look at Bioshock 2. Now, this is a trailer that came out 14 years ago. As with all this stuff, I can remember exactly where I was sitting when I watched this on IGN. This trailer came out before YouTube was the first place to go for sort of video content surrounding video games. It's actually a working title, doesn't even appear anywhere. All of this animation is unique to this piece of PR, and it's a hell of a trailer. It really rocked my world. 3 years have gone by since Bioshock 1 came out, and I have done the game more than once, and everybody is chafing at the bit for more Bioshock, so the pressure was on with this. Sea of Dreams was the subtitle, and this pan out, that water, the corrosion, the only thing that really stayed, and if you know, is that beautiful blue butterfly.
I will be, above all, her intellectual progenitor.
I am still trying to find out which of the 3 Bioshock games is my favourite. Infinite and even System Shock recently featured on the channel, and I'm still very annoyed that that collection that featured on the PlayStation 4 doesn't run at 4K, even on the PlayStation 4 Pro or 5. The 5 version of all 3 of the games from that disc runs at the PlayStation Pro spec. Xbox, again, I'm not going to go into it. We do have an impeccably pegged 60 frames per second, which is great news. And I will say, with Infinite at the front of my mind, because that was technically the last retro Bioshock game I looked at, some of the textures and visuals of the interiors of this game didn't bowl me over, but there is some very cool stuff coming up, and this game I think would do very well with the whole series, to be fair, with full-blown current-gen remasterism.
These 3 are...
Irrational games are now officially gone, as you all know. Kev is now working on a new game called Judas. I think I can safely say that they were one of the better world builders of that 360 generation. The Bioshock games pushed the entire industry to do better, create cooler stuff, come up with fantastical brand new ideas. It was a real sweet spot for the industry, and it's an area I very much miss. If you're into modern games, you'll know that new IPs are few and far between. Risk taking is very much frowned upon, and stepping in the familiar footsteps of previous models and titles is basically the norm. Concord, how did that work out for you?
State-of-the-art submersible platform, nicknamed the Sinker, ferries supplies and workers to the sea floor.
Going back to that graphical point and the mention of Infinite's beauty, this is a hell of a jump from Bioshock 1. It's also quite deep and convoluted with who the villains are, even more so with the idea that you are playing as an alpha Big Daddy.
Here, he shouts to his crewmen as he wipes sleep from his eyes. Full stop. We begin building here.
You're not one of the big boys, you're kind of a mid-level, and you've gone rogue. The combat is also massively amped. You may not remember, but in Bioshock 1, you kind of couldn't use your plasmids simultaneously or alternate them out with your weapon in the right hand. It was all a bit janky. With this, it's smooth. You pump in different elements to an enemy, then switch over to the rivet gun. It's very intense, but also, not ashamed to admit this, a little bit difficult. It's got kind of discover restart points, but stays in position after you've died with where all the enemies are up to. This is a real plus because bosses will keep their depleted energy, but you'll find yourself completely running out of everything. Have to backtrack or even upload a new save in order to be a bit more prudent, because you know you have a rather tough section coming up. And on this revisit, I'm at the beginning and I'm thinking, dang, this game's really easy. I'm just popping off rivets and using up all my plasmids. Then of course you get that horrendous Big Daddy fight, and you have the little sisters causing a horde section every time they need to grab Adam off one of these dead corpses. I know this sounds all a little bit crazy. It will make sense eventually.
Take a breath, son. You did it. Now, just let her ride on your shoulders and she'll trust you like her own daddy.
I suppose what I'm trying to say here is it all feels a little bit awkward against some of the modern first-person shooter models in single-player games, but it's okay. It's a sign of the times, and the game still is completely enjoyable up against a lot of modern titles. So this is the aforementioned Horde section. This is the second time you've got to do this. If you haven't expended everything already, you're just about to. You also get the chance to hack a machine gun. That leads me on to one of the major aspects of this game. Is a lot more hacking, a lot more robots around, a lot more mounted guns. It's very much focused in that direction alongside its dual wielding capabilities. Also, the movement you're seeing here on the target, some of it is the auto aim. It does literally take over and keep with some of the splicers for you. This is okay again, can be turned off, and it is something that I just wasn't aware of back then when I first played it. Maybe it was implemented when they rolled out the collection.
Ridiculous!
Some of the aspects of playing as the Alpha Daddy are pretty damn cool. The game does come with some outside walk-in sections, not enough as far as I'm concerned, and you do hear the cool bullet on tin noise when you take damage. Also the whole chunky movement when you crouch, you sway left and right. It was such an intriguing selling point. Kev knew exactly what he was doing, and when you saw the posters and got the news that you were going to be going in this world at that angle, I can remember the excitement reaching boiling point. And that brings me over to its reception. Pretty damn good for a follow-up sequel. Remember, 3 years went by. This wasn't peddled out after 18 months. Left 4 Dead 2. The game's unique angles don't stop there, giving you the chance to interact with little sisters, who are basically big daddies but quicker, meaner and sassier. And there's this terrifying lore woven into this backstory. Sophia Lamb, the reason that you've gone rogue, everything comes together really well. It aligns up perfectly for a dual ending. That's the other thing. I only ever saw the good ending because I can't bring myself to harvest those poor kids. The shadow work, you carry them around with you on levels to get them to the corpses. You can see the silhouettes. Damn good stuff for the year that this came out.
Well, our Tin Man had a heart all along. Personally, I call that a liability.
Sinclair also, as you can hear, has that whole duality to him as well, and you're also sort of burnt from the whole Fontaine situation, so it's really intriguing how they know that and keep putting these little crumbs of doubt in about who you're dealing with and whether they're the right person to trust. Talking about trust, look at these reflections. This is not RT, and some games are charging the earth for remasters to implement stuff like this now in 2024. There's a tough thing going on in my brain with putting these games in a ranked order. Bioshock 1 had that awe, that first initial amazing breathtaking introduction to Rapture, and that really works in its benefit against Bioshock 2 because you've kind of seen this angle before. Infinite, in my eyes, is just really its own thing and almost out of canon for those first two games. But the combat in Bioshock 2 is almost modern day feeling, and that's a very strong aspect to actually bothering to play these games all these years down the line. But it also keeps that cool Bioshock world music and crazy characters. So on paper it is the better game, but you've got to remember the magnitude of the first one and what it did to the industry. Kicked it up the arse is what it did, and we goddamn need another situation like that.
What would impress her more than lighting the fireplace with a snap of your fingers?
Taking that risk to change out that protagonist for a sequel to one of the most beloved games to come out of that studio was a very ballsy thing to do. I don't think you'd see it nowadays with the current industry.
Many changes will be flowing if you wanna be amazing. See the flowers we are raising.
The in-house jingles are pretty damn strong as well. They were in Bioshock 1 and they're actually really interesting in Infinite. Massive attention to detail is so important when it comes to good world building, and smaller pieces of story or different aspects of characters that you can uncover or discover really add to the rich lore. You don't see enough effort put into this direction anymore. The whole team at Irrational were just expert at this. I'm just so gutted that it all dissipated, and I really don't know what direction Judas is going in.
Holy Moses, son.
For me, and I think after all that, this might sound a little bit counterintuitive, but the sweet spot on that whole PS4 collection disc is the Burial at Sea DLC that is attached to Infinite. It takes you back to Rapture, you play as Elizabeth, it's just amazing. I will link the content review in the description. That collection is not expensive and available physical Alan Wake 2. The longer we drift into this strange unknown period with modern gaming, the more the memories of the Bioshock trilogy crystallize into a stronger piece of media. The new talent or lack of, or the new IPs that are coming out, they can't really be held up to the greatness that occurred back then. If you've just found me, I consider it my job to point you in that direction with older or even newer video games. There are those blue butterflies. I have been Couch Coup. I will see you down there.